Good day everyone, I'm Marlon M. Lopez and today I will discuss the comparison of power distance between Singapore and Philippines. Power distance is defined as the extent to which the less powerful members of institutions and organizations within a country expect and accept that power is distributed unequally. And this dimension deals with the fact that all individuals in societies are not equal. It expresses the attitude of the culture towards these inequalities among us. Ang mga bansang Singapore at Philippines ay isa sa mga matataas ang Power Distance Index. As we can see, Singapore scores high on this dimension, score of 74. With a Confucian background, the Chinese, they normally have a syncretic approach to religion, which is also the dominant approach in Singapore. One of the key principles of Confucian teaching is the stability of society, which is based on unequal relationships between people. Kilala ang Singapore bilang global financial center sa mundo, at sa business world ay power is centralized and managers rely on their bosses and on rules. Employees expect to be told what to do. Control is expected and attitude towards managers is formal. Communication is indirect and the information flow is selective. Not all people will place so much importance on their job titles. So do pay attention to how senior colleagues act around you. You can also start by acknowledging the status of your seniors. Also be careful about challenging them in public. It may be seen as an embarrassment or a sign of disrespect. If you do believe that an idea of theirs is worth challenging, do so in a formal manner or in a way that does not humiliate them. On the other hand, in Singapore, may mga tao pa rin sa kanila na kahit mayaman na sila o mataas na yung level ng pamumuhay nila, halimbawa na lang nito ay yung mga manager ng company na willing pa rin mag-share ng knowledge and skills sa kanilang mga subordinates at makitungo sa mga ito ng maayos at patas. At a score of 94, the Philippines is a hierarchical society. This means that people accept a hierarchical order in which everybody has a place and which needs no further justification. Hierarchy in an organization is seen as reflecting inherent inequalities. Centralization is popular. Subordinates expect to be told what to do and the ideal boss is a benevolent autocrat. Sinasabi dito na sa Philippines o sa ating bansa ay kapag mataas ang social status mo, ay kadalasang sa iyo pumapabor ang lahat gaya ng mga mayayaman. Kapag ikaw ay isang mayaman o may power in society, ay rerespetuhin ka at gagalangin ka dahil sa status na meron ka. Kadalasan sa ating bansa ay uso ang pagkakaroon ng mga special treatment, lalo na sa mga tao may mataas ang social status. Halimbawa na lang nito ay kapag alam natin na ang isang tao ay professional o mataas ang antas sa lipunan, binibigyan natin sila ng consideration. Gaya ng mga parking slot na kung saan mas binibigyan priority ang mga mayayaman at may mga reservation pa na pinoprovide para sa kanila. Sa ating bansa, kapag tayo ay mahirap, tingin sa atin ng mga mayayaman o mapepera ay mababa ang level ng education at maging sa pamumuhay. Kadalasan dinidiktahan tayo ng mga taong mayayaman para gawin lang yung mga bagay na gusto nilang ipagawa sa atin, na kadalasang nangyayari sa pang-araw-araw nating pamumuhay. Nakadepende tayo sa mga taong mataas ang social status dahil sa power na meron sila. At maging sa ibang aspect ng buhay, malayo ang agwat ng mayaman sa mahirap.
Good day everyone, I am Mena Castillo and join me to know which country between the Philippines and the Singapore is more collectivist or individualist. So, the Philippines with a score of 32 is considered a collectivistic society. This manifests in a close long-term commitment to the member group, be that a family, extended family, or extended relationships. Loyalty in a collectivist culture is paramount and overrides most other societal rules and regulations. Society fosters strong relationships where everyone takes responsibility for fellow members of their group. In collectivist societies, offense leads to shame and loss of face. Employer or employee relationships are perceived in moral terms like a family link. Hiring and promotion decisions take account of the employees in group, and management is the management of the groups. So, what makes the Philippines a collectivist society compared to Singapore? As a Filipino, try to look at your environment. Have you noticed most Filipino families have their extended families living under the same roof? This was because Filipinos value social harmony and maintaining smooth relationships. We also prioritize and value our families rather than ourselves. And one of the stereotypical mindsets of Filipinos is that children are the parents' investments, and the main responsibility of most children is to complete their education, but some children are also expected to work for their families. After the children marry, many decide to continue living with their parents. As parents age, it is the responsibility of their adult children to take care of them. Which in contrast in Singapore. In 2013, the survey of social attitudes of Singaporeans showed that 90% of respondents believed they had close-knit families and 80% still maintained ties with extended families. However, in modern industrialized Singapore, the multi-generational family structure is difficult to maintain, and the nuclear family has become the predominant household structure. And with an aging population and the younger generation growing more individualistic, demanding, and bold, maintaining this value is a point of difficulty for Singapore. There has also been a significant increase in people living alone and couples deciding not to have children. Additionally, in Singapore, young adults can also get married and move out of the home without parental permission. And all siblings have equal inheritance rights. However, if you compared Singapore to other Western countries, Singapore will be a collectivist society.
Mabuhay! I am Denise and Tobio, and now I will discuss the masculinity ng Philippines at Singapore. As you can see from the dimension of masculinity between the Philippines and Singapore, Singapore has a score of 48, not too much lower than the Philippines, which has a score of 64. This shows that in both countries, the men play a greater role in dominating the woman when it comes to authority and responsibility. So, a high score on this dimension indicates that society will be driven by competition, achievement, and success. So, ang Pilipinas ay isang masculinity society na may mataas na score sa Singapore. Because here in the Philippines, ang mga kalalakihan ang dapat nagtatrabaho at bumubuhay sa pamilya nila. Samantalang ang mga kababaihan ay tanging sa bahay lang upang pagsilbihan ang kanilang pamilya. And also, nadala din ng Pilipinas ang tradisyon noong unang panahon na tanging lalaki lang ang may karapatang magtrabaho at walang kakayahan ang mga kababaihan. Kaya ang Pilipinas ay isang masculinity society. However, in Singapore, we have a score of 48, so there are laws in place that protect women in most modesty and violation situations. In comparison, Singapore generally practices a higher sense of equality between men and women. The Singapore government encourages and emphasizes social harmony in showing respect to one another regardless of gender. And also, when it comes to politics, mas pinipili nila ang mga lalaki, mas gusto ng mga nakakarami dito sa Pilipinas na ang namumuno sa bansa ay mga kalalakihan. Katulad din sa Singapore. Based sa aking na-research, so, si Halima Yacob, ang kauna-unahang female president in the country's history sa Singapore. So, ibig sabihin, the rest ng mga naging president sa Singapore ay puro lalaki. Kaya ang Singapore ay isa ring masculinity society.
Hi, I am Angelica Domalaon and I'm going to discuss the uncertainty avoidance. As you can see in the graph, the score of Philippines is much higher than the score of Singapore. The score for uncertainty avoidance reflects how much a culture's citizens feel vulnerable by enigmatic or unknown situation and how much they have developed structure and beliefs to try to avoid them. So the difference between high and low uncertainty avoidance. In high uncertainty avoidance culture, society becomes rigidly structured. Its institutions are orientated around a high number of laws, rules, and regulations. Traditions and their associated rituals are a key part of daily lives, and typically people feel uncomfortable in unstructured situations. For example, in the Philippines has a high uncertainty avoidance culture with the score of 44%. Ang mga tao sa Pilipinas are typically surrounded by strict rules and social obligation at hindi sila nag-take ng larger risk na unfamiliar of them because of their fear of failure. However, people in low uncertainty avoidance cultures are much more relaxed in new or unusual situations. They are happier with uncertain and unresolved problems. In this kind of cultures, change in society can take place relatively quickly. For example, in Singapore, Singapore has a low uncertainty avoidance with a score of 8%. The people in Singapore tend to be more open to the unknown, they take more risks, make decisions kahit na hindi nila alam yung potential outcome, and are more inclusive of others. Sa Singapore, mas nagfo-focus sila sa new ideas and personal feelings and less on rules and principles. In comparison, Singapore is much better than Philippines when it comes to uncertainty avoidance kasi mas open sila sa more ideas, sa new ideas at more risk kahit na hindi nila alam yung potential outcome nito.
Good day everyone, I am Aldrin in Santa Ana and today I am here to discuss and compare which country has a long-term orientation, the Singapore or the Philippines. And as you can see in the graph, Singapore scores 72 and the Philippines scores 27. And this high score is reflected in Singapore, which shows cultural qualities supporting long-term investment such as perseverance, sustained efforts, slow results, thrift, being sparse with resources, ordering relationships by status, and having a sense of shame. Due to its international community and its rich history, Singapore has become a cultural hub. Widely popular with international business people, Singapore is ideally situated for Westerners to launch out into other Southeast Asian countries. Singapore is great country for work opportunities. Singapore ranks second in the world when it comes to attracting and developing talent. So, working in Singapore can be very exciting. Singapore has become one of the five dragons with immense economic success. And lastly, Singaporeans emphasize virtue in the way in which things are done. They are always open for new options to arise. Kung mapapansin niyo sa ating graph, mas mataas ang Singapore kaysa sa Pilipinas in terms of long-term orientation dahil dito sa Pilipinas, ang society natin uh, masyadong crowded, um, kadalasan talaga matraffic sa mga kalsada, tapos marami ding mga taong pakalat-kalat lang sa kalsada, walang tirahan. Then mapapansin talaga natin ang mabagal na pag-unlad ng ating bansa. Pero sa Singapore, um, kahit na mini-maintain nila or kino-consider nila yung kanilang culture and tradition, um, nagpe-prepare sila. They look forward for their success of their country, kung paano pauunladin ang kanilang bansa. At sa kadahilanan ng marami silang resources, or advanced sila sa technologies, mas napapadali nila ang kanilang pag-unlad ng kanilang bansa at hindi sila ganun ka nahihirapan para magresolba ng isang problema sa kanilang society. And this is the end of my video. Thank you.
Good day, I'm Maria Angelie de Gecale, and my topic is all about the indulgence between Philippines and Singapore. So, what is indulgence? The indulgence dimension is a relatively new dimension to the model. This dimension is defined as the extent to which people try to control their desires and impulses based on the way they were raised. Relatively weak control is called indulgence, and relatively strong control is called restraint. Indulgence refers to the extent to which societies attend to basic human needs. Indulgent cultures spend time to meet these needs and enjoy life, while less indulgent ones focus on their responsibilities and duties while practicing control over human drives. Understanding this dimension allows us for a better chance of successful communication and relationship management. It is important to be flexible in international social encounters as people from different national cultures show certain preferences. And as you can see on the graph of Hofstede's 6 cultural dimension, in indulgence, Philippines has a lower score compared to Singapore. The Philippines has a low score of 42, which classifies it as a restraint. Societies with low score in this tend to have a presence of cynicism and pessimism. Cynicism is the feeling of distrust or that something isn't going to work out well. For example, a politician make a big promises trying to win the election. And pessimism is a tendency to see the worst aspect of things or believe that the worst will happen. A lack of hope or confidence in the future. For example, a student always expects difficult exams and bad grades. Restrained societies do not put much effort into leisure time. In this dimension, people feel like their actions are restricted by social norms. And in Singapore, is it not possible to determine a preference on this dimension because of Singapore's intermediate score of 46. Singapore falls in the middle of the dimension.